Hey guys, and welcome back to FTB Interactions. We finished off last episode by crafting up the assembly line controller. However, this is a multi-block machine and we need a few more components before we can set this up. The first of which is 20 great machine casings. We need another 8 assembling machine casings. These I think are one of the more expensive parts. Yeah. We also need 10 assembly line casings. These are also quite expensive. Actually, you know what? Let's cancel these crafts. Hold on. These do take a lot of these IV components, so we may as well pick up this quest while we're going to be crafting a bunch of these for these casings anyway. So let's go ahead and request the 40 motors that we need. That's a lot of annealed copper though. Alright, the motors have just finished crafting. Let's pick those up for the quest. We also need a pump, some conveyor modules, and a robot arm. All of which I've already added to our ME system, so we can auto-craft all the components for these. And yes, I'm using tool recipes here. Alright, there's the conveyor modules, we have the robot arms, and that is quest complete. Nice, these are really good rewards. Let's claim all these. Alright, now let's craft the rest of the components. So we need 10 assembly line casings, 9 input buses, 1 output bus, 20 solid steel machine casings, some reinforced glass, and an energy input hatch, which has to be LUV I think. There we are. Alright, so now to actually build the thing. I'm going to build it a little bit off the ground since the inputs are on the bottom. Alright, what did we do wrong here? I remember having trouble with this in Omnifactory as well. The last time it was because we have steel casings and assembly line casings on these blocks here, and they look exactly the same block, and I think that's what's tripping it up again. Let me figure this out. Alright, there we go, multi-block has formed. I just had the output bus on the front rather than on the back. Alright, cool. So just a quick recap on the reason we're actually building this thing. This we're going to use for the next tier of circuits. I think it actually is required in all of the next tiers of circuits. Although these wetwares can be made in the assembler, but to make the LUV assembler we have to make the LUV parts, which require the assembly line. So to make these wetwares, we are actually only missing the one component, and that is Neuro Processing Units, which are also made in the assembly line. We do get 8 at a time though, so that's quite nice. However, from here we are missing a few components. So the gold plates we have, or can make, same with stainless steel plates. And I think actually the rest of the stuff we have to set up. So let's start from the top and do sterilized growth medium. This is made by heating raw growth medium, which is made in a mixer with distilled water, sugar, mincemeat, and tiny piles of salt. Alright, so the distilled water is very easy. We just add a distillery. We're pulling water from our ME system over here. I decided just to do it on the opposite side of the assembly line. And we'll do all the neural processing stuff on this wall. Okay, so step 1 is easy. Let's do the sugar next. And to get sugar, I think we're actually going to centrifuge beets. We have beets growing in our farm. Yeah, we have a full barrel of beets over here. So I think all we have to do here is put a storage bus on this barrel. And we do already have ME conduit over here. The question is, do we have enough channels? Alright, where's this coming from? It's downstairs. Alright, so it's down here, and this is connected to this P2P, which has 1 channel left, luckily. So we can storage bus right here, set this to extract only, partition for beets. And now we can put down a centrifuge, and we're going to put beets in this interface here, and we'll extract on the brown channel. Alright, cool, we're getting sugar. We do also get veggie bait, which is pretty much useless. So I think we'll actually just put a little trash can in for this. And we can just hide that in the back here with a filter for veggie bait. Alright, so that's 2 steps of 4 for our raw growth medium. Next up is mincemeat. And to mince meat, we have to obviously get it from animals. Which one though, I have no idea. Oh, we can do it from fish. And I think actually fish we can get from DML, if I was to guess. Yeah, we can get a decent amount of fish from Guardian DML, which I haven't actually leveled yet, so maybe it's worth investing in doing some DML stuff. Either that, or we set up the botanical fishery, which I've never actually used before, so maybe this could be quite interesting. This does take mana input, and I believe it just outputs fish. Yeah, you know what, let's set this up just for a change. I kind of want to see how this works. This doesn't look too bad in terms of the blocks. Let me gather these materials and we'll set this up. Alright, I got all the pieces of the multi-block except for Prismarine, so for that we have to find a Guardian Temple. I remember seeing one somewhere nearby, but where? I have no idea. I think I found something resembling a Guardian Temple. I think this might be an underwater dungeon actually. I wonder if there's any... Ah, yeah, this is what we're looking for. Okay, we got the multi-block built here. Doesn't seem to be forming though. Maybe we need the blueprint. I think I found this from a dungeon somewhere. But yeah, next we have to give it this mana. So I've built this next to our infernal deconglomerator. And I don't think we'll set up all 4, so I just took the space that was for the 4th one here. So luckily we already have mana over here, so we should just be able to direct this mana spreader into this input hatch. Or I think it's actually getting blocked here. Alright, well in that case let's do into this mana pool, and we'll get another mana spreader for the machine. Alright, there we go. And, oh wow, this is fast. We're already getting fish here. So I think what we'll do to deal with the output is just stick an ender chest on this. Not that one though. Let's use blue for this. Oh yeah, I forgot these don't auto output. So we need item conduit in between this. Alright, we got fish. Let's set up the other side. So back over at our machines here, we're going to place a pulverizer with an ender chest on the top. This we're going to colour blue, and this should have all our fish in it. Which we're going to send it into the pulverizer just using some item conduit. And then from here, what did we have to do again? Oh, pulverize twice. We can just use auto output on the second one and plug this in. Cool, so that gets us mincemeat. And what else will we be missing for growth medium? Just tiny piles of salt. We were making salt somewhere, weren't we? I don't remember where that was though. Was it over here at our Thaumcraft area? I think it might have been somewhere. Ah yeah, here we are. Here's some salt. So how do we transport that over there? I think the easiest solution is just to slap a storage bus on the side of the machine and configure to extract only for salt. Assuming we have channels down here, of course. Okay, so those I've just added to this interface down here. The salt that is. And that goes into an unpackager. Actually, why are we not getting any more? Oh, I think I actually had the wrong type of salt, which is weird. I have the GregTech salt, whereas we're making the mechanism salt. So let's replace that. I don't think it matters for this specific recipe. Yeah, it gives us tiny piles all the same. So now we have to throw all of that in a mixer and then fluid heater that. So the mixer can go over here and we'll just limited item filter this for mincemeat, sugar, and tiny piles of salt. And then we have the distilled water just coming in on fluid conduit, and we're not getting enough energy here. Okay, fix the energy. We're getting raw growth medium, and then we have to fluid heater this. Alright, and there's our sterilized growth medium. So I think what I'm going to do, instead of sending this into our AE system, I'm just going to put a fluid storage bus straight on this machine, as we don't really need a massive buffer of this. Alright, and that is step 1 of our Neuro Processing Units. So next up, we need silicone rubber. We are producing styrene butadiene rubber, but we are not quite making silicone rubber. So to do this, we need polydimethylsiloxane dust. That's also a mouthful, but we then have to combine that with sulfur in a chemical reactor. And to get polydimethylsiloxane, we have to mix... Actually, we have a few different options here, but I think the one I'm going to go for is water, chlorine, methane, and silicon. And we get some byproducts with this, so let me grab a few machines and we'll set this up as well. Alright, so again, first step is to combine silicon, which we're pulling from our ME system, and all the 3 fluids. That's going into a chemical reactor, and we need circuit 2 for this, I believe it is. Alright, so yeah, this gives us our 2 fluids plus our dust, which we're after. Let's deal with the byproducts first of all. So the hydrochloric can just go back in our system. And the diluted, I mean, is it worth distilling? Probably. Yeah, I think we will. So I added a advanced distillery above it, and we've got a pump on there with a fluid filter set to diluted hydrochloric acid. So that's going to pull in all the diluted. We just have to plug that in. And very slowly, that's going to dilute into regular hydrochloric, which we're just going to send back into this ME interface here. So we can do that just by extending this conduit line and then just export all fluids on blue channel. Cool, so that gets rid of all the fluids. Now we have to deal with this polydimethylsiloxane dust. Alright, so we have the chemical reactor above. We're just pulling the sulfur from our AE system. All that's going on the item conduit on brown channel here with limited item filter. And then we just extract from this chemical reactor, and this gives us our silicone rubber. So with this, we can actually use this to coat cable if we want, instead of the styrene butadiene. But what we want it for is to fluid solidify into plates And then we'll also need a bender for the foils. Luckily, we actually had most of these MV machines from when I tore down our original setups over there. So all these machines are getting their new home here. Right at the very end game. Alright, so we need the solidifier first of all into the bending machine. Alright, filters are set. We're solidifying into rubber plates where we can auto output. Put in a circuit for configuration 4 here. And we got our foils, awesome. Alright, so we're almost at Neuro Processing Units. The next step for us is stem cells, which is a mixer recipe with sugar, soy milk, eggs, infinity reagent, and life essence. Or actually, you know what, let's come back to that. We're going to do wetwares first. So the wetware boards are made with polystyrene, integrated circuits, and multi-layer fiber reinforced boards. The two items we have, but we still have to make polystyrene, which is oxygen and styrene is benzene ethylene. Alright, so the first stage is done. We've set up a fresh fluid interface here to filter ethylene benzene. That goes into the first chemical reactor. We do get a hydrogen byproduct here, which will send back into the interface on priority 1, or the higher priority, and then we'll just trash the rest on lower priority. And the styrene gets extracted and put in the chemical reactor above it, where we need a circuit on config 0, I think it was. There's our polystyrene. So this fluid we now need to put in an assembler, and we're going to be doing this step on demand. We're not going to be doing this passively for the wetware boards, as this is quite fast in this pack. I think, if I recall, in OmniFactory this took like 500 seconds or something crazy. But here we can just do it on demand, so I'm debating whether to set the assembly line or the assembling machine up over there, or just stick it on top of this chemical reactor. And I think what we'll do is actually just put it above the chemical reactor, and then we'll put an interface on the back to supply the pattern. Guess it has to be the top since we need power in the back. So we'll allow input from output side, set the auto output, and in fact we'll give this interface a little name. And so all we need now is the pattern for wetware boards. This I think is the wrong circuit though. We need the tier 2 integrated circuit. Yeah, this one. And we'll put the pattern in this interface here, and now we should be able to request wetware boards. Yep, machine is crafting. This should auto output to our system, and another step is done in this process. Wow, this is turning into quite a number of machines here. And the wetware finished. Is this a quest, I wonder? Oh, we have to pick up fiber reinforced first. Alright, well there's 2 quests in 1, and some free boards. I'll take those. Alright, so the next step is going to be stem cells, and this is going to be many mixers to create this thing. So we need life essence, sugar, soy milk, eggs, and then we also need infinity reagents, and for these we need to do medium covalence, which then takes redstone, brass, mana, and low covalence. And low covalence is another mixer recipe here. And wow, this is going to be a lot of steps, okay. Which is why I decided to do it all off camera, and we now have stem cells on autocraft. So let me show you the process here. I did move these 3 machines on the end and put the mixers here, just since it was easier to pipe the fluids in on the back, since we already had a fluid interface back here. So the first one here mixes the life essence with the soy milk, the infinity reagent, the eggs, and the sugar to give us the stem cells itself. The eggs for this recipe we're getting from this brand new roost over here. This is just a smart chicken which outputs eggs, and we have a storage bus on there. The soy milk we're actually already producing over here at our farm. We get this when we centrifuge tofu, and we use the tofu to make the cellular blocks for our mana generation down there. So I just put a storage bus on this basically full barrel of soy milk. This meant trying to get some more channels down here, but I was able to do it just by replacing this with dense cable. The life essence we were already producing, and so the infinity reagents we're just doing on demand. So I added a we already had a mixer I think for liquid nightmares. Yeah, so there's a pattern in here for infinity reagents. And then for medium covalence, I have a extra mixer with mana that just has the pattern for medium and low covalence dust in it. So yeah, it was actually a bit more simple than what I thought. But this means that we can now create our Neuro Processing Units. We were missing these glass tubes, as well as the distilled water. We were producing it, but we didn't have access to our ME system, so I've buffered that into a little tank here with a fluid storage bus on the bottom for distilled water. And then for these glass tubes, we have to fluid solidify glass liquid. So I added this extra fluid solidifier down here. We're pulling glass, liquid glass from our system over here that gets filtered on the insert. And then we just have a storage bus on the top side of this machine to give us the glass tubes. So that, I believe, is actually all the parts for the assembly line. So let's see if we can set up automation to give us Neuro Processing Units. So to do that, we're going to use item laser relays, and this is the same, nearly the same setup I had in OmniFactory. I was messing about with this for quite a while actually. I had to end up using a hop-in interface into a regular interface from Actual Additions. And the way these lasers work is they treat all of these input buses as the one inventory. So if we shift over this, we can see in the tooltip, all of the items are now in this assembly line. And the way I got this to work, because these are advanced item laser relays, I can't actually see any of the regular versions, the non-advanced ones that is. So if you're going to do this, make sure you set the whitelist off, as this is on by default. And that seems to have got it to work for me. And the way we're getting the items in here is we just have the pattern for the Neuro Processing Units. But we also need the liquid for this, which is sterilized growth medium, distilled water, and UU matter. And to do that, we can just use a fluid interface. Where should we put this thing? Maybe here. And then we'll just have a separate input hatch for every fluid. This assembly line does actually take multiple different fluids. Like for example, we need lubricant for the LUV components later on, and solder and alloy as well. So rather than trying to send exact amounts of fluids, I mean it is possible I guess with volumetric flasks in this pack, but instead what we'll do is just have a separate input hatch and just always keep it with the fluids that it needs. Okay, we got two of the fluids in their input hatch, the distilled water and the sterilized growth medium, with filters on the inserts here. The one we're missing though is UU matter, and we are actually producing UU matter in our order multiplication system. Yeah, there's 20 buckets in here, although to be fair we really don't need a lot of UU matter. It's over here I think we're producing it, yeah. Right now I don't think we actually have the power to increase our UU matter production, so I think what I'll do is actually just take some of this out of this machine. Where is it? This one. We'll take half out of the machine and then just fill the assembly line manually. Since this recipe I think is actually only taking 10 millibuckets, or 20 millibuckets per 8. So this is going to last like forever basically. Actually, do I want to put all 10 buckets in here? Because in this pack we actually can't take out the fluid input hatches. Let's maybe just do one bucket, just in case we need it elsewhere as well. Oh, and that was even a quest for a UU matter. Yeah, we'll just do the one bucket, and oh, it's actually already started. Yeah, so we got power in the top with the flux point. This is taking, what, 80,000 RF a tick? But on the output bus we have our Neuro Processing Units. Amazing. So we need some way of importing this back into our system. So I think the easiest way to do that is just to have another interface. So if we can just slap this straight on the input-output bus, and then hook this up to our system underneath. And now we see our Neuro Processing Units show up. Awesome. And that's a quest as well. Oh yes. Okay, what's next for us then? I think it's going to be wetwares. We also got the two quests for that. One for stem cells, which we get our trophy, the stem cell synthesizer. Oh, this is from Cyberware. And some worms. And we also got the UU matter quest, which gives an Endus pearl and wow, 64 buckets of UU matter. That is a very generous quest reward. Alright, so with that, let's see if we can make our wetwares. So how far off are we this? I think actually we have all this stuff. We are just missing the recipe for it. And we'll also need molten tin or solder and alloy in the assembly line. And I think later on we actually need to use a solder and alloy, so we may as well use the solder and alloy. Although we aren't quite making this thing yet, so this is something we'll also have to set up, which is antimony and tin. How much of that do we actually have? 100,000 tin and 500 antimony. I think that should be enough though. Alright, let's put in the pattern and then set up solder and alloy over here. Alright, so we need an alloy smelter into fluid extractor. And then we can just use this same interface just to import into the alloy smelter. We have a limited item filter here for antimony and tin. Once we give that some power, that will give us our solder and alloy, which gets fluid extracted, and then we just have to expose this to our ME system. And once again, we'll just use a fluid storage bus on the machine and plug it in. Alright, so that is solder and alloy being automatically produced as well, which means we can add that to this fluid interface for the assembly line and set the filter on the input bus. Cool, so now we have our fluids, we have our items, we should be able to request our Wetware Circuits. Missing one recipe, okay. We can fix that. And now we can request wetwares. Let's see if this goes off without any problems. Alright, this isn't starting, that's not a good sign. Oh, I just was impatient. It's still crafting the components for this. Okay, so it seemed to work with the regular hopper, but not with the hop-in interface. I've tried a few different configurations with this, but I think the issue is that this interface isn't actually pushing into this interface. I know it's confusing, both called interfaces, but the actually additions one doesn't actually have an internal inventory. But the items did move. We are running here. Very slowly though, as we don't have quite enough power to run this thing. Or barely enough power to run this thing. But the craft did actually finish. We got the 2 wetware processors that we requested. Nice, so now that we have our wetwares, I think we want to eventually upgrade to the next tier of assembling machine, which is the LUV tier. And then I think we'll want to quickly swap out to using the LUV assembling machine, the single block, rather than the assembly line to make our wetwares, as it is a little bit more energy efficient this way. So yeah, we want to make the LUV assembling machine as our next goal here. But for that, we need a bit more assembly line stuff. So we have to make the LUV components, which take the assembly line, and this takes a lot of HSSG. But all of the components for this we actually have. We just need to import recipes for like the rings and the rods. How do we make rounds? Just from nuggets? Okay, we can do this. And then the piston is the small gears. Yeah, we can make all these components already. So let me encode all these recipes, and then we'll see if we can make our LUV components. This is running LUV tier, right? Yeah, we have LUV power in this thing, so. And our new machine wall is looking a lot cleaner this way as well. So as part of these LUV components, we need long rods. And to make long rods, we have to, well, we can easily either use the tool crafting recipe, or we can use a forge hammer. And since we don't have a forge hammer yet on our line of machines here, let's set this up really quick. And that should let us make all the long rods that we need. So we have all the recipes encoded for the motor at LUV tier. This also does require the lubricant, which I added to our assembly line. If we're quick enough, we should catch it crafting here. Yep, there we go. Oh, it's a bit slower than what I thought, but eventually we'll overclock this once we have more power. Also, our lubricant is actually not very fast. I think we're still actually producing it at LV tier. Where is our lubricant again? Over here maybe? No, that's life essence. Ah, here we go. Yeah, let's upgrade this distillery and fluid extractor to make faster lubricant, as this is also something that powers our diesel generators. Let's swap these out for some HV machines here. There we go, that's much faster lubricant production. So we have the motors, next we can get the conveyor modules, and also the robot arms. And finally, the piston recipe. Also, just as well we set up that forge hammer because we can't make the small gears in the, the lathe that we make them in? No, the extruder. We have all the other small gears can be made in the extruder. But this HSSG one, for some reason, has to be done in either a fluid solidifier or a forge hammer. So I guess we'll put this in our forge hammer interface. Alright, so with all the recipes encoded, let's see if we can request our LUV assembling machine. Wow, this is a long ingredients list here. Okay, we're missing nearly 40 HSSG. I think we'll have to increase our limit on the blast furnace. I think it was, yeah, this one. Let's increase this to 256. And we have the dust fully automated. It was just that this blast furnace was paused. So that should build up a little bit more HSSG. I guess we'll try ordering all the components separately then. So we need the 2 robot arms. Let's do this first of all. This may take a while. By the way, I did also swap this hopper with a bronze crate as it's faster at moving items. And then we just have conveyors to pull the items from this interface into the bottom interface. So while we wait on that stuff crafting, let's talk about what our next major goal of this pack is. And we're actually almost at the end of the pack. There's still, like I mentioned yesterday, there's still a lot for us to do. So the next step is actually going to be fusion. And in Omnifactory, you had to go through all different stages of the fusion reactors. There's 3 different tiers. There's the Mark 1, 2 and 3. So I don't think we'll get to this today, as there's a few components in this that we're actually missing for the Mark 1 at least. The first of which is the wetware assemblies, which we can actually make now that we have the wetware processors. All this stuff we have, so that's okay. The nether star plates, we can do that. Plutonium-241. Let's pin that and come back to this. Fusion coil blocks, I think we'll also come back to this, as this takes superconducting coils. The field generators at IV, I think we can actually do this. We have all this stuff automated already. And that leaves superconductor wires and HPICs. So yeah, let's actually do the superconductors next, which are quite a bit easier in this pack. It doesn't take any draconium like it does in Omnifactory. We just need some yttrium barium cuprate, some tungsten steel, and electric pumps. And for these pumps, I'm actually doing the tool recipe, but I think we want to get away from that, so let's put in this recipe here. We already have a molten tin assembler, so we may as well use this. And we also need another assembler with nitrogen inside to do this final step for the superconductor. And we can do the step at EV, I think. Alright, we got another assembling machine. Let's set the auto output, and we just need the pattern for superconductors. And I guess the fluid as well for nitrogen. Alright, so our superconductor wires are now craftable. I don't know exactly how many of these we actually need though. But I guess we can use these instead of the stellar alloy ones that we are not yet automating at the lower tiers. But yeah, with that, let's look at the HPICs, which take high power wafers, which is red alloy, indium gallium. Oh, this is why we need indium gallium. Okay. And power ICs, we're also not making these yet, which takes wafer automation. Yeah, we don't have any of these ones yet either. Alright, well in that case, let's first of all make the Naquadah doped wafer, which is going to take, obviously, Naquadah, and I think that actually does take quite a while in the blast furnace. And this is where we can put our argon to use that we set up last time. So we'll need Naquadah ingots, which we have tons of ore from Aurelia, and also blocks of silicon, which we have like thousands of silicon dust, but we have to also set up another blast furnace to make silicon dust into silicon ingots. Alright, so that's blast furnace number 1 for silicon. This is combined with the circuit 0, and exactly the same configuration as all the other blast furnaces. Now we need one for Naquadah, and this requires 5400, which is the HSSG coils. And since we made that little mistake last time with the crystal chips, we're just going to reuse this one, which means we can tear all this out. We don't need any of this anymore, and we'll repurpose this for Naquadah. Alright, and we have 2 blast furnaces. The first one I've reconfigured for Naquadah. So this just takes Naquadah dust, smelts it into the hot ingot, and that gets frozen in our vacuum freezer down there. And the second one is a little bit more complex. This takes the argon from this fluid interface into the input hatch. And then it takes the silicon ingots from that blast furnace over there, puts it into this compressor where it compresses it into silicon blocks. And these we combine with the circuit to give us the Silicone Boules, which we cut into wafers. We actually get 64 at a time, which is huge. So I may actually, yeah, you know what, let's decrease the level emitter on this thing to just 4 of these things. So that's basically 4 stacks of wafers. And I think the cutting step we'll just do on demand. So we can add a recipe into our cutting machine. And then after they're cut, we can actually replace the ones that we were using. I think we were actually just using the ones from Quest Rewards, to be honest. Like, yeah, we haven't made any wafers since, I think, like, LV, something like that. So yeah, we can now use the Naquadah ones for much more efficient wafer usage. And this also unlocks a few more wafers that we can use, primarily these system-on-chip ones, which can be cut and then used in all of the circuits. So if we look at, for example, the Tier 1 circuit, this was the first recipe that we used, and then we switched to using SMDs. But if we use the system on chips, we can actually cut out the SMDs altogether and just use boards and fine wire. So I'll probably swap out all the recipes in between the episodes for all the different tiers of circuits to use system on chips. And there is also an ASOC one as well, advanced system on chip, which I think we need for the higher tier circuits. Yeah, quantum and above. And this we also get from the Naquadah doped wafer. It's just a different lens, so we'll have to build a few laser engravers for that. But let's go back and actually do what we set up this Naquadah doped wafer for in the first place, which was HPICs. So these we need a blue lens, and as far as I can see, we don't actually need a whole lot of these things, so I think I might just batch craft this. The first step is to laser engrave them with the lapis lens. Now we just need a chemical reactor at EV to mix our red alloy and the indium gallium with the power IC wafers. Oh, hold on a second. We need phosphorus dust, and the dust that we have is only phosphor dust, which means we have to electrolyze it twice. The first time we get phosphate, and then we electrolyze that once more into phosphorus dust. So let's set up an electrolyzer just to do on-demand recipes like this, where we need just a little bit of dust in the electrolyzer. And a lot of the time with the electrolyzer we get a fluid byproduct. I'm just going to throw it out here, I think. Most of the time it's just oxygen or nitrogen or carbon dioxide maybe. So I don't think it's worth trying to mess with that over there. We have other ways of producing that sort of stuff anyway, so I think it'll be fine just to throw that out, and then we just need these 2 recipes here, yeah. And I noticed there is actually some quests over here that we can complete now. So we can get the power IC, and we can cut one of these into some useless power ICs for... Well, I guess they're not that useless. We can use them for transformers. There we go. We can also go ahead and grab the Naquadah ingot. We're up to 5 already. We can also get our Naquadah doped Boules. Gives us another 8 for free. As well as the wafers. Nice, we get another 32 wafers for that as well. And then these are the socks and ASOCs, which I think I'll set up in between the episodes. So now with our indium gallium, we can combine that with red alloy and the power ICs. This will give us our HPICs for the fusion reactor. And also in that time, it looks like we can also request the rest of our LUV assembling machine. The robot arms did finish, so we just have to craft a few conveyor modules, a few extra motors, and lots of cable looks like. Alright, so finally the LUV assembling machine finished. Nice, this I think is our first LUV machine. I guess we'll put it on this line, or no, this is for IV. I guess we'll have to set up some more machines. Maybe we'll do it on these walls. And we'll have machines going along here just to fill the space up a bit. But I think that's something we'll save for next episode. Today we got lots and lots of stuff done, I feel like. We automated the assembly line, we got our wetwares, we got solder and alloy, a bunch of different things automated on this wall. And all things considered, we're actually not too far away from getting our first fusion reactor. It is a multi-block of course, so we do need all of the LUV machine casings, which I think is a lot of chrome. But yeah, that's going to do it for today. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for some more FTB interactions.